4 spine-chilling cases of cursed déjà vu. Secrets revealed. Terrifying truths discovered. The wind howled like a banshee through the trees as Sarah pulled into her driveway, exhaustion weighing on her shoulders. Once again, her shift at the hospital had dragged late into the night. The fluorescent lights and frantic sirens still echoed in her mind. But as she stepped into the house, she was met with an unusual sight. Danny, her 10-year-old son, stood trembling in the hallway. His wide eyes darted to the window. "Mom, I saw him. The shadow man, he was right there." A chill trickled down her spine. Sarah brushed off his fears with gentle smiles, dismissing them as mere nightmares fueled by too many late-night horror shows. "It was just your imagination, sweetheart," she soothed. But even as the words left her lips, doubts crept in. Why did his voice quiver? Days turned into sleepless nights, and Danny grew increasingly anxious. "Mom, he's back," he insisted, recounting the shadowy figure lurking outside, memorizing the fearful details that echoed disappearances in their suburban town. Sarah's heart raced, a growing unease gnawing at her. Their quiet neighborhood was bathed in the light of amicable lawns and friendly waves, but lately, a sinister shadow hung over it. Then there was Greg, the neighbor from down the street, who always seemed to appear just when need arose. Fixing a leaky faucet, bringing over baked goods, always with that disarming grin. But something about him struck Sarah as unsettling. His eyes lingered a moment too long. His smile stretched a heartbeat too wide. That night, a full moon bathed the streets in an otherworldly glow. Shadows danced with the rustling leaves, and as Sarah heard Danny mumbling in his sleep, her heart pounded in her chest. She tiptoed into his room, holding her breath. "The man, he guards us," Danny whispered eerily, recounting the legends she thought mere folklore. Her heart quickened. It felt like a warning. The next day, under the guise of routine errands, Sarah began her investigation. Each disappearance felt connected. Each moment of Greg's helpfulness came with a dark coincidence. Once friendly faces morphed into something much more sinister, and the neighborhood's cheerful facade cracked, revealing the shadows beneath. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue with Danny's anxiety spiraling. She confronted Greg at the community barbecue, laughter ringing hollow amid her dread. As the sun dipped below the horizon, paranoia thickened the air. She caught Greg's gaze lingering on Danny, and the unease twisted inside her. It wasn't just her fear. It felt palpable, a warning resonating through the gathering. As the lights flickered sporadically, shadows shifted among the crowd. A gut-wrenching realization clawed at her. Maybe the threat was lurking in plain sight, cloaked in familiarity. She tightened her grip on Danny's hand, the air thick with palpable tension. The story the neighbors had spun, a tale of protection, felt like a horrific joke. With a racing heart, Sarah faced the suffocating darkness ahead. What if the very home she'd fought to create cradled a beast in its heart? She could almost taste the fear in the air, a bitter aftertaste of betrayal. As she clasped Danny fiercely, the shadows around them grew thicker, shifting to malevolent shapes. Questions swirled in her mind. Was she too late to escape? The calming, safe haven she thought she had built might just be an elaborate trap, and the claws of danger were closer than she dared to admit. The moon hung high, casting long, eerie shadows that twisted and turned as Sarah navigated her way through the neighborhood, Danny's hand firmly in hers. Her heart raced, a mix of maternal instinct and dread. The atmosphere felt electric, charged with unspoken secrets and hidden threats. Every creak of a branch seemed amplified. Every whisper of the wind took on a sinister tone. As they approached their house, the porch light flickered, illuminating the entryway with an unsettling stutter. Sarah's breath quickened. "Let us get inside, Danny," she urged, her voice barely above a whisper. The door swung open with a soft creak, as if the house itself sighed at their return. Danny hesitated, eyes wide, glancing back toward the street. What if the shadow man is waiting for us? There's no shadow man. "It's just the wind, sweetheart," she assured him, though a shiver danced down her spine at the thought. She stepped inside and quickly locked the door, feeling a momentary sense of relief envelop her. But that relief was short-lived. The darkness loomed larger in their cozy living room, swallowing the light whole. Shadows crawled across the walls, stretching like nervous fingers. Sarah pushed the unsettling thoughts aside and focused on Danny. "How about a movie? Just us," she suggested, trying to push away the dread. As she set up the living room, Danny settled onto the couch, his fingers twitching nervously. The flickering glow of the television cast ghostly shapes on his face, revealing the anxiety that had become all too familiar. Just as she pressed play, the lights buzzed and flickered again, and Sarah's heart dropped. "Mom, he's here," Danny whimpered, eyes glued to the window. She turned to look. Outside, a figure stood at the edge of the yard. A tall silhouette, cloaked in shadow. "Greg?" Panic clawed at her throat. "Danny, stay close to me," she whispered, stepping toward the window, her breath hitching in her chest. "He's the one," Danny muttered, his voice shaking. "Just a neighbor," she reassured herself, but the unease wouldn't leave her. The figure seemed to shift, its head tilting slightly towards them, as if sensing her gaze. Sarah took a step back, her mind racing. Suddenly, the front door rattled. "Sarah, is everything all right in there?" It was Greg's voice, friendly yet disconcerting as it sliced through the silence. "Just a movie, Greg. Everything's fine," she called back, forcing a smile, though it faltered. "Mind if I stop by? I brought some pie. You know how much Danny loves it." Her stomach turned. Every instinct screamed for her to keep the door closed, but she felt trapped. She couldn't show fear not in front of Danny. At the same time, the idea of letting him in felt like welcoming a wolf into the henhouse. "Mom," Danny's voice broke through her thoughts. "I'm scared." The wind howled outside, echoing his fear. Taking a deep breath, she moved slowly toward the door, glancing back at Danny. It was time to face the truth. Sarah opened the door a crack, hesitating for just a moment. Greg's smile was wide, too wide, and the shadows danced on his face, making his features look distorted. "Just wanted to check in on you guys," he said, his voice dripping with feigned innocence. But could she trust him? Was he a friendly neighbor, or had he become something far more sinister? Would this be the night they learned the truth? Suddenly, a sharp knock echoed through the house. Where did it come from? Her heart pounded. Every muscle tensed as fear gripped her. "Mom," Danny whimpered, eyes fixed on the door. Before she could react, a chilling realization cut through the air. What if the shadow man was more than just a dream? What if he was already inside? As the knocking continued, Sarah's resolve wavered. Who was waiting in the darkness beyond her home, and what did they want? The very walls of her sanctuary felt like they were closing in. But what would she dare to learn next? The knocking grew louder, each thud reverberating in Sarah's chest, threatening to drown out her thoughts. She caught Danny's wide eyes, glistening with fear, and a wave of protectiveness surged through her. "Stay behind me," she whispered. Even as her own legs felt heavy with dread, the door rattled again, more violently this time, and she instinctively stepped back, pushing Danny further into the shadows of the room. "Greg," Sarah called out, her voice trembling. Doubts twisted in her mind. This man, always so friendly, now felt like a cartoon character, his edges sharp and sinister under the flickering light. "Sarah, let me in," Greg shouted, his tone shifting from casual to urgent, the friendly mask peeling away. "I really need to talk to you. It's important." "Mom." Danny grasped her arm tightly, his nails digging in. She felt helpless, and conflict surged within her. Should she let him in, or risk the unknown lurking behind the door? "Danny, listen to me. We have to be quiet," Sarah said, dropping her voice to a whisper. Each word felt like a risky attempt to stave off impending horror. But as they huddled together in their home, the knocking evolved into something more. A whispering, slithering sound slid through the cracks of their door, the air growing thick with dread. "Let me in," Greg howled once more, the anger in his voice becoming more pronounced, almost inhuman. The shadows around him deepened, swirling like a storm ready to unleash terror. "Stay here. Lock the door," Sarah commanded Danny, feeling a surge of fear turn into something sharper resolve. She took a step forward, moving toward the door, her body shaking but unwilling to show weakness. "Greg, what's wrong?" She shouted back, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. Silence filled the air, heavy and suffocating. Then came a low murmur, words slithering through the cracks. "He is not who you think he is, not at all." Danny whimpered, pressing against her leg. "Mom, please. We need to go." A cold hand gripped Sarah's shoulder, her own shadow stretching on the wall in a grotesque dance. She spun around to see the living room dimming further, each flicker of light revealing unsettling visions. Twisted faces lurking in the depths, eyes that glowed with malice. "Something's wrong," Danny cried, his voice shaking, drawing her back into the moment. Just then, the front door shuddered with a force that felt unnatural, rattling with a human desperation, yet tinged with something more disgustingly primal. Sarah's mind raced. The shadow out there was more than just a neighbor, it was a predator. "Mom, please." Danny's voice reached a pitch of outright terror. I know," she replied, gripping the door handle as the sounds intensified, bashings and aggressive whispers storming around them. Then, in the blink of an eye, an image of the shadow man flashed through her mind, the way he waited at the edge of the yard. What if he wasn't just watching? What if he was gathering forces? "Let me in," Greg screeched now, an edge of desperation twisting his words, an almost animalistic growl seeping through the cracks. "We're running out of time." "Time for what?" Panic tightened Sarah's stomach. It felt as if the darkness itself was pressing against the walls, suffocating her reality. "I need to see you, Sarah?" It swirled again from behind the door, the voice now mixed with something less recognizable. Amidst the chaos, something in Sarah snapped. "I'm not afraid of you," she shouted back. The house quaked in response, echoing her defiance. The knocking ceased instantly, plunging them into deafening silence. The quiet was horrifying. But then, was that a whisper? She strained to listen. "Open the door, and you'll find the truth," the voice slithered out, chilling her to the bone. "What truth?" Panic surged as the air thickened around her. "Mom, what do we do?" Danny's voice was tiny, pleading. Swallowing hard, she realized they were no longer just fighting against a shadow. They were standing at the doorway of unfathomable terror. And just as she began to imagine their escape, a new voice emerged. Hushed and cryptic, echoing as if from the very walls of their home. "When he comes inside, everything changes." What did that mean? The door began to tremble again, the chilling knocking returning, more insistent than ever. And then, without warning, the door crashed open. The door flew wide, revealing the figure of Greg. But it wasn't just him. Shadows poured in like a dark tide, filling the small entryway. His face twisted, the familiar features now a mask of chaos, the glint in his eyes nothing but empty voids. "Sarah, please," he gasped, but the voice that emerged was no longer his. It was laced with distorted notes and provoked phantoms, echoing her worst fears. "They're coming," she staggered back, pulling Danny tightly against her. An overwhelming cold swept through the room, curling around her spine as the shadows writhed and flickered like something alive. "Get away," Sarah shouted, her voice gaining strength even as a primal dread gripped her. Greg stepped forward, the shadows biting at his heels, morphing with every step. "No, don't close it." His hand shot out, groping for her, but something behind him clawed at the doorframe, a cacophony of whispers rising to a fever pitch. "Everything changes," the words echoed through the dim light, thickening the air with foreboding. Only now did she see a figure slid into view behind him, thin and bent, its head hanging long and low, obscured. "What is that?" Danny whimpered, eyes wide. "I don't know," she whispered back, her heart pounding so hard she felt it in her throat. Then Greg lurched forward, the shadows writhing and splitting around him, pulsating like a living entity. "You need to trust me. It's not just me." A gnarled hand emerged from the darkness behind him, claw-like fingers extending toward her. Panic surged anew, a tidal wave of instinct. "Shut the door," she screamed, fumbling back. But Greg surged again, pushed by forces unseen. "Sarah, no. You won't understand. They'll take him too." The room erupted into a whirl of sound, voices colliding, laughter mingled with cries. Each note was a chilling promise of despair. She couldn't breathe, the air thick with malice, an invisible weight pressing down, threatening to suffocate her sanity. Something grabbed her ankle. "Danny." "Mom," he screamed, eyes wild with terror. She looked down, seeing his small hands shaking, pulling her back from the edge of the door as she backed away. The darkness poured in, but so did the light stray memories of laughter fading into spaces she had shared, warm and kind. Moments shared with Greg spun through her mind, but they felt distant, frail, like remnants of broken glass. Listen to him. Danny's voice broke through the haze of confusion. He needs us. We can't leave him, Mom. No. Sarah cried out despite herself, battling her own heart. P.S. Not before she could finish. The shadow lunged forward, and suddenly, her home was no longer solid ground. The walls seemed to pulse and undulate as if they had a heartbeat. Images flickered, showing her tornadoes of grief, whispers of others lost, drowning those moments of joy that a scream escaped her lips, echoing against the cacophony. What do you want from us? Everything. The voice was now a chorus, menacing yet alluring, drawing her into its depths. Your truth, your fears, they belong to us now. Danny sobbed beside her, the sound threading through the chaos. Sarah's instinct took over. She dropped to her knees, grabbing him tight. Don't let them take you. The shadow surged forward again, dark fingers scraping the floor, inching ever closer. Sarah, trust me. Greg's eyes locked onto hers, haunted, desperate, revealing the depths of a torment she had never known. In that moment, trapped between terror and misguided loyalty, a decision loomed closer than the shadow itself. Do they risk it all and let him in, or turn their backs and face the abyss together? And just then, the shadows whispered again, insistent and seductive. To find out, open your heart. What were they asking her to give up? The weight of the choice sank into her bones. The tremors in the walls grew steadier, as if awaiting her answer. Mom, Danny cried, his grip tightening. Time stretched. What would she choose? As she opened her mouth to respond, a loud crash reverberated through the house, silencing all thought. Then darkness settled like a cloak around them, thickened by unspeakable truths. What will you choose, Sarah? The words hung in the air, taunted with a sense of finality. And that when the floor began to shift beneath her, a disorienting whirl, twisting her reality. What monstrosity awaited them as the ground opened? Was she ready to find out? The ground heaved, raw and alive, as if some ancient beast stirred below. Sarah could feel the pressure building, the house groaning under the weight of its nightmares. With a sudden, violent lurch, she lost her grip on Danny, throwing her to the floor. His terrified scream cut through the tumult, piercing the darkness surrounding them. Danny, she cried, scrambling to her feet. The shadows writhed, pushing and pulling, wrapping around her legs like clinging vines. Mom. He was farther away now, straining against the indifferent pull of the darkness that flowed like water. Sarah stumbled forward, fighting against the shadows that wanted to take them both. She reached for Danny, desperation surging within her. It was an echo of smiles and laughter, but now rendered bittersweet, tainted by dread. Hold on to me, she shouted, her voice cutting through the shrill whispers that clawed at her mind. But the dark figure behind Greg stirred, a few steps forward, revealing its twisted form, a grotesque silhouette of a person, limbs too long and jointed in ways that defied nature. It moved with a purpose, the shadows bending to its will. Let him go? Greg's voice rang out, filled with pain. You don't know what they are. They'll shut up. The creature's voice was a growl, as jagged as a broken glass. You're done speaking for her. The shadows recoiled, then surged back toward her, an army of darkness intent on pulling her into their depths. She felt Danny slip away, his small hands vanishing from her grasp as he was drawn back into the maelstrom. Mom, help! Danny's pleas shattered her heart. Then, in a moment of clarity, she remembered the whispers. They had promised understanding. What truth did they want to extract from her? To force her into a pact she couldn't comprehend. Enough, she yelled, channeling every ounce of her fear into rage. You can't have him. He mine. With those words, something shifted. The shadows paused, almost considering her. Time slowed as if the world was holding its breath. Your heart is fragile, like glass, the creature murmured, each word laced with danger. Will you sacrifice it to save him? Sarah could sense the darkness stirring, eager for her answer, waiting with dreadful anticipation. What if I said no? She challenged, though her voice quaked. Then he dies. and his spirit will join ours. That shadowy promise sent icy fingers creeping up her spine, sparking fear into an inferno of determination. She pushed back against the darkness with everything within her. I will not let you take him. To her shock, a beam of light pierced the room, illuminating the chaos around her. For a brief moment, she could see everything. The grotesque figure, the shadows writhing as if in pain, and Danny, terrified yet resolute, still fighting against the bindings of dark influence. She took a step forward, feeling the light's warmth coursing through her. The whispers of the shadows turned to shrieks, vibrating with displeasure. You can't break free, Sarah? Watch me, she shouted, sprinting towards Danny, the shadows lashing out in desperate attempt to thwart her. She shoved through them, feeling their cold fingers scraping against her skin. Danny, grab my hand. The moment their fingers touched, a fiery current surged through her. No more hesitation, no more fear. As if amplified by her resolve, the light around them intensified, blasting away the darkness. The shadow behind Greg screamed, a sound that made the ground tremble. Then, as if repelled by a wave, it surged backward, retreating into the recesses of the house. But their respite was short-lived. In the wake of the pulse of light, the walls began to tremble violently, and a new darkness coalesced overhead, darker than earlier, thicker, and more suffocating. Mom, what is happening? Danny gasped, his eyes wide in horror. I don't know, she yelled, fear grabbing at her once more. But deep down, a primal instinct roared within her. They had faced one monster, but what if this was only the beginning? What menacing force lurked in that darkness, threatening to consume them next? Before she could answer, the floor cracked, a gaping maw opening beneath them. And from that abyss, something sinister began to rise. Sarah, we need to go? Greg urged, his twisted face barely visible beneath the shadows. But Sarah couldn't shake the feeling this was far from over. What awaited them from the darkness didn't just demand an answer. It was pulling them into a deeper nightmare. What are we going to do? She whispered, despair creeping back into her voice. Was escape even possible now? Or would they have to face whatever horror awaited them head-on? Stay close, she finally said, as the ground quaked with a primal hunger. What more would they have to endure as the darkness prowled, thirsty for their fears? And more importantly, what hideous truth awaited them in the shadowy depths that seemed to stretch infinitely downward? The crack in the floor widened, splintering wood and letting loose an ancient, fetid odor that clawed at Sarah's throat. She gasped, pulling Danny close as the darkness seethed, eager to devour them. It felt alive, hungry, as if every pulse of the house mirrored the beating of some unseen heart. The floor trembled beneath them, threatening to crumble away completely. Run, Greg shouted. But the words were drowned out by a deafening roar that erupted from the darkness, a sound unlike anything she had ever heard, a mixture of fury and hunger. No, Sarah cried, tugging Danny away from the abyss. She could see the fear etched deep into his innocent face, and it invoked a fierce determination within her. We can't let it take you. As they moved, the shadows swirled and coiled around their ankles, pulling them back toward the crack, toward the depths that seemed to promise nothing but torment. With every step, the darkness hissed, whispering insidious words that wormed their way into her mind. Join us, embrace the darkness, he will be free, stop it, she yelled, shaking her head violently to clear the vile suggestions from her thoughts. She should have known better. It fed on fear, and she would not give it the satisfaction. Mom, I'm scared, Danny whimpered, clutching her hand tighter. I know, honey, but we're together, she shouted, her voice breaking as the shadows lunged again. The oppressive weight of their despair seemed too much to bear. Suddenly, Greg stumbled, nearly falling into the churning void below. It's pulling me, he yelled, panic flooding his voice. Get up, Sarah commanded, a mixture of fear and anger coursing through her. She reached out to help him, her heart racing as the darkness roared, furious at their defiance. With every ounce of strength, she pulled at Greg, but the shadows betrayed him, latching onto his legs like 1,000 grasping hands. I can't hold on, he cried, his face pale, eyes wide with terror. Don't you dare let go, she screamed. She looked into his eyes, searching for a glimmer of hope, something to fight for. We can't lose anyone else. And then, Through the chaos, she remembered the something she felt the pulse of the light that had chased the shadows. She focused on that feeling, thinking of Danny's laughter, the good memories that brought warmth to her heart. "Stay with me, Danny," she commanded, channeling every bit of love she felt into her words. "Focus on us, our family." With a forceful scream, she surged forward, dragging Greg from the shadow's grasp with all her might. In one swift motion, they fell back from the cracks, tumbling onto solid ground. The shadows screamed in rage, their howls echoing like thunder through the halls. The light fought back, flaring like a beacon, pushing walls of darkness away. "Look," Danny pointed, his voice trembling but filled with wonder. The beam of light wrapped around them like a shield, pulsating in response to their fear and determination. But as they caught their breath, the darkness above writhed, pulling itself back. Sarah's pulse quickened as she realized it was gathering force, not retreating. The creature was still coming. The shadows twisted, forming a monstrous face, a horrific visage that glared down at them with eyes like burning coals. "You've only delayed the inevitable," it snarled, its voice echoing with a cacophony of despair. "You will pay for your defiance." Sarah felt raw fear gripping her heart, the weapon of their foe cutting deeper than any blade. But she couldn't succumb. She had to stand firm. "We will not fall." The ground beneath her grew hotter, flames licking closer, threatening to engulf them. The darkness writhed again, desperate to claw its way back. "Mom." Danny's voice pierced through her resolve, panic lacing it. "I'm here," she shouted. But who could save them from something so ancient, so hungry? "Shift," Greg suddenly yelled, breaking through their fear. "We need to shift the darkness away." Without knowing how, Sarah nodded, heart racing. "We can fight it together." The moment hung in the air, thick with tension, surrounded by the roars of the shadows. Will they manage to shift the darkness and escape its grasp? Or will they fall deeper into the nightmarish abyss? Time was running out, and something wicked awaited its moment to pounce. "Now," Greg yelled, drawing more strength from his fear. On 3, 1, 2, 3, they launched forward, a unified force against the darkness. The bright light blazed intensely, pushing back the swirling shadows that clawed at their flesh. Sarah felt the weight of despair beginning to lighten, just a fraction, but it was enough to ignite hope. "Keep pushing," she urged, her voice rising above the chaos. Danny squeezed her hand tighter, his little body trembling beside her. Together they ran, feeding off the searing brightness that flickered around them like a wild flame. The air crackled with tension, electric with fear and desperation, as the grotesque face of the dark entity twisted above them. It bared its teeth sharp and glistening, and emitted a screech that vibrated through the wood beneath their feet like the groan of a dying beast. The ground shuddered again, fissures appearing like jagged faults in the earth, taunting them to let their guard down for just a moment. "Don't look back," Sarah shouted. She felt the heat of the darkness closing in, like palpable dread swarming, hungry and insatiable. "Mom, I can't feel my legs." Danny's voice quaked, breaking. The determination that had anchored them faltered as he stumbled against her. "I don't want it to eat me." Her heart cracked at his words, shattering the last semblance of calm. "You're strong, Danny." She fought back tears, pushing him forward. "Use that strength. Remember the games we played? The park?" He nodded, eyes widening in terror but focused on her. "Okay, Mom. Okay." As Sarah felt the shadows grasping at them again, a flicker of an idea ignited. "Ground yourself, Danny. Let it flow through you." "What do you mean?" he cried, his voice strained, but he tried to steady himself. "Think of your light. The toys, the laughter, everything that scares it. Use it." The shadows screamed in appreciation of their pain, and the floors beneath them began to quake rhythmically, pulsing like a malignant heartbeat. Sarah could almost feel the creature's power weaving through the air, thickening as it gathered intensity, tightening its grip around them. "You're right," Danny shouted, his voice trembling but resolute. In that moment, he found his courage. "I want to go home. I want to be with you." With each word, a brilliant light surged between them, drawing energy from their memories. It wrapped them up tighter, forming a shield against the encroaching darkness, growing stronger with each moment spent invoking joy, but it was still not enough. The darkness roared, furious at their defiance. You think you can shield yourself from me? It bellowed, its voice a monstrous cacophony that filled the air. I am despair. I am nothingness. Sarah felt her pulse race. We are more, she screamed, channeling every ounce of love she had into the swell of light. Just then, the ground beneath Greg cracked again, sending him crashing down. Help! He shouted, fear clinging to his voice as he clutched the splintered wood. Greg! Sarah's heart sank. She had to help him, but the shadows lunged and threatened to drag them all down. Stay strong, Danny cried, choking back fear. I can feel it. I can feel the light. The shadows hissed, eyes narrowing, and for a moment, the world stood still. Time warped as Sarah reached for Greg, desperate to pull him back. Then with an earth-shattering roar, the darkness surged forward, resisting everything they had built. The air crackled with electricity, the walls of the house vibrating with many secrets eager to escape. Mom, please. Danny's voice trembled, a thin thread of desperation. Hold on. She gritted her teeth and yanked at Greg with all her strength, but shadows clutched at her too, each pull a dance of terror. In the chaos, a chilling laughter echoed, and the shadows blinked, revealing ancient sigils burning into the floor like scars. Sarah's breath quickened. The symbols twisted and turned, something shifting in their depths. What had she uncovered? Mom, it's changing, Danny shouted, pointing. It's alive. Then we fight it. She shouted, unwilling to falter. We will. Shift it. Focus on the light. With lightning in her veins and fury in her heart, they surged forward together, spirit and strength entwined. But would the light be enough? Or would they be consumed by what lay beneath? The truth was unraveling, raw with wicked intentions. Time was slipping, and the darkness was hungry what awaited them in the shadows below. A memory? A secret? Or something far worse? The shadows twisted and contorted, seizing the light with an unholy hunger, rippling like ink in water. Sarah's heart raced as panic clawed at her throat. She could feel the darkness trying to creep into her thoughts, muddying the hope that had surged within them just moments before. Mom, hurry! It's Danny's scream cut through the air, frantic and small against the overwhelming noise of the shadow's wrath. No, I want to let go, she shouted, pulling with all her might at Greg. The wooden beams above them groaned, and with another violent tremor, the floor cracked wider, splintering like fragile glass beneath their feet. Help! Greg cried, his voice hoarse, but Sarah couldn't abandon him. Not now. Not when they were so close to breaking through this nightmare. The sigils burned brighter, the letters dancing and writhing as if trying to scream their secrets. Each curve and line seemed to pulse with a life of its own, echoing lost memories and forgotten horrors. If they could only decipher the symbols, concentrate, Sarah urged Danny, channeling every instinct to shield him from despair. Think of our love. Think of the fun we have together. Danny nodded, recalling days at the park, the way the sun warmed his face, the sound of laughter shimmering in the air. I see it, Mom. I see the light. As the warmth swelled again, it pushed back against the shadows, illuminating the room in an ethereal glow. But the darkness, monstrous and relentless, howled louder, and the walls of the room loomed like ancient giants, poised to crush them. Leave us! Sarah screamed at the monster, feeling the adrenaline pulsing through her veins like fire. You don't own us. The flickering light expanded, whipping around them in vibrant spirals, wrapping tighter around their bodies, igniting courage in the face of overwhelming fear. But the shadows shrieked, morphing, coalescing, as if aware of their rising resolve. More! Cried Danny. Mom, we need to push harder. Sarah closed her eyes tight, feeling the warmth and the power of their bond flowing through her. She could hear the whispers now, fragmented words that echoed from beyond the veils of time. A warning? A secret? Thrusting her hands forward, she shouted against the darkness. What do you want from us? The entity paused, the air thickening, a stench of decay flooding through. Silence blanketed the room for a split second, allowing hope to sneak in. Then, like a thunderclap, the darkness responded. Your fear nourishes me. You are nothing but vessels for despair. The cruel laughter twisted into a chorus of agony, yanking at their very souls. No, Danny shouted, his wide eyes aflame with determination. We are not afraid. With those words, the light burst forth into a blinding flash. erupting into a ball of radiant energy. It shivered with memories and love, shooting outwards, scorching away at the darkness. The sigils writhed in agony, drawing back as the bright light expanded further, splintering the air with a force that shook the very foundation of the nightmare house. But as the light enveloped Greg, he suddenly disappeared into the blinding glow, swallowed whole before Sarah could grasp him. "No, Greg!" she screamed, horror ripping through her chest like icy claws. "Mom, we have to keep going," Danny urged, his grip on her hand as strong as iron. "We can still break free." Behind them, the house trembled, and the entity howled in anger. "You think you can escape? This is only the beginning." With a wild surge, Sarah felt the tendrils of darkness rise again, cold fingers grazing her skin, wrapping tighter. She hesitated for just a moment. Fear enveloped her heart. Was their light truly strong enough to vanquish the nightmare? The pulsating symbols twisted, revealing an ominous shape lurking, waiting to unleash its terror. As they fled deeper into the darkness, a chilling realization washed over them. What had they really unleashed? What if there was a deeper truth they had yet to uncover? Terror clawed up her spine as they pushed forward. The only certainty was that every shadow they encountered now concealed a cruel, hidden secret, a secret waiting to consume them whole. The light flickered erratically, defining the edges of their world as shadows slithered hungrily at its fringes. With every step Sarah and Danny took, the oppressive darkness seemed to stretch and lunge, grasping at their legs like long, pale fingers desperate for a hold. They stumbled through the collapsing remains of what had once been a safe haven, a home. But now, it felt like a sinister labyrinth designed to ensnare the lost. "Mom, where do we go?" Danny's whisper trembled, an echo of the dread that had crystallized in the air around them. "I don't know." Sarah's voice fractured with uncertainty. But there was no time to dwell. Panic surged anew as the walls groaned and the floor collapsed behind them, creating a gaping maw that threatened to swallow them whole. They had to move. The sigils, pulsating with dark energy, seemed to shift before her eyes. Each mark dripped with malevolence, a taunting reminder that they were far from free. "We need to find another way out," she urged, clenching Danny's hand tighter. "Look," he pointed ahead, with fear but also determination. Straining, Sarah squinted and caught sight of a shimmering outline at the end of the hallway. It flickered, radiant but threatening, like a distant star trapped under the weight of a storm. "Can you see that?" Sarah pressed, her heart hammering. Danny nodded, his eyes wide like saucers. "It's pretty. Stay close," she commanded, propelling them forward. Each step was a struggle against the weight of despair that threatened to cling to them like a shroud. The darkness roared angrily, causing the very walls to vibrate, as if the house was alive. Infuriated by their defiance, the shimmering light beckoned like a promise, but as they neared, it morphed, expanding into an unsettling shape. What at first looked like a doorway twisted into a fractured reflection of their own faces, distorted and horrified. Sarah gasped, halting mid-step, the realization crashing down on her. "Mom, it's us. It's us," Danny cried, backing away, scrubbing his eyes violently as if to dispel the horrific vision. "No, it's a trick," Sarah screamed, her instincts screaming at her to flee. But their path echoed with sinister whisperings, a cacophony of lost souls entwined with anguish. The shadows flared, reevaluating their vantage at Danny and Sarah, hungry eyes watching from the void. "Your fears cannot save you." The disembodied voices echoed, each word slicing through Sarah's resolve like glass, shivering painfully against her skin. "We are your memories, your guilt, your shame." Her heart was pounding so fiercely she could hardly hear. "Ignore them, Danny. Keep moving," she shouted, dragging him back, ignoring the sludge of sorrow clawing at their heels. "Where's Dad?" he panted, panic washing over him. "Not now. Just trust me." But trust was wavering like a candle in a storm. The darkness whispered once more, sharper, closer. It curled around her heart and squeezed. What if Greg was gone for good? What if the light was drawing them into a deeper trap? They spun away from the Hall of Horrors, searching for anything that felt safe, only to find themselves enveloped by an even darker corridor, filled with shadows that echoed dark laughter and filled her with dread. A chill ran across her skin, and in an instant, an abandoned room stood before them. Old photographs lined the walls, images of families smiling, of happiness long extinguished. "Mom, look." Danny pointed toward a picture, his voice breaking. Sarah's pulse quickened. The faces grinned brightly, reflecting sunlight, but the eyes they held a depth of lifelessness that unnerved her. A family, lovingly captured, but something felt wrong. "Those aren't people we know," she whispered, dread curling around her thoughts. The realization hit her like a punch. They were all reflections of lives consumed by despair, just like their own. Then the laughter grew louder, filling the room, closing in on them. "Mom, what do we do?" Danny's voice cracked. The shadows were closing in. Heart racing, Sarah clutched Danny to her side. Desperation clawed at her. "We need to fight. Back." But how? The house shuddered, and a cold wind swept through the room, carrying with it a chilling notion. Could love be enough against something so powerful? And just as panic threatened to overtake them, a new voice cracked through the air, resonating with authority. "You cannot hide from the truth." "What truth? What truth?" she demanded, staring at the phantoms surrounding them, lost in a web of anguish. The shadows laughed again, dark and deep. And as they prepared to launch an attack, a blinding flash erupted, illuminating the room in an unnatural light. At that moment, Sarah had only one thought: what if they were too late? What would it reveal when they pulled back the layers of horror? The light engulfed them, washing over the forgotten memories trapped in the walls, illuminating the darkness with a blinding brilliance. Sarah shielded her eyes, bracing against the pull of despair, holding tight to Danny. The warmth surrounded them like a comforting embrace, pushing back the shadows, but the laughter of the dark spirits still echoed, taunting them. "Mom," Danny's voice trembled, laced with fear, yet something deeper stirred within him. "What if it needs us? It wants to know our truth." Her heart raced. Could the darkness truly be craving their truths? With each heartbeat, she felt the shadows clawing at their minds, desperate to unveil their fears. "No, Danny," she said with strength she wasn't sure she possessed. "We will not feed it." "Then what do we do?" he pleaded, eyes wide, reflecting the chaos around them. "Remember who we are. Remember love." She felt the energy surging within her. This was their moment. In that blinding light, she saw images of love woven together: Danny's laughter, their shared adventures, even joy mingling with sorrow. A tapestry of memories filled her mind, overpowering the darkness clawing for dominance. With this clarity, Sarah gathered her strength, her resolve solidifying like a rock. "We have power. Our love is stronger than all of this." The shadows shrank back momentarily, flickering as if caught off guard, their snickers turning into snarls of frustration. Sarah seized the moment, realizing this was not just her fight, but Danny's too. "Let the light flow through us," she urged. "Danny, think of the happiest time we had together right now." In a rare moment of clarity, Danny's eyes glimmered with understanding. "The park. When we saw the fireworks." "Exactly." Sarah felt the flood of warmth surge, urging it to grow. "Let it build inside you. Count to 3. They counted together, each word igniting memories. 1, 2, 3. Memories exploded like fireworks within them, bursting from their hearts and radiating through the air, illuminating the shadows around them. The light expanded, warping the very fabric of darkness. The entity recoiled, hissing and screeching, vulnerable for the first time. "You will regret this. You cannot control the fear." But Sarah's voice rang clear, battling the hollow threats. "You're wrong. Fear can't control us. Love will always lead us back." They surged forward, pushing the unfolding light onward, forming a wall against despair. Suddenly, the shadows writhed, exposing their vulnerabilities like snakes stripped of their fangs. "No, this cannot be." The grotesque faces melded and merged, voices of the past screaming in confusion, but the light pulsed, creating pathways to memories buried deep. A montage of faces flickered above them. Friends, family, an anthem of love surged through the room, linking arms, uniting against the encroaching despair. "We will not turn back," Sarah roared, feeling the strength of all they had lost lending them power. Pushed to the precipice, the darkness quivered, ebbing in its ferocity as the brilliant memories spiraled outward, illuminating every corner of the haunted house. "Danny, hold on to me," she shouted above the crowd of howls, feeling their bond tighten. With one final surge of energy, a blinding flash consumed everything, setting her world alight in echoes of laughter and warmth. The shadows shrieked in agony, a chorus of lost hopes swallowed by luminescence. As the cacophony faded, silence enveloped them, heavy yet peaceful. When the light dimmed, Sarah and Danny found themselves standing intact, the malevolent presence gone, evaporated into streams of mist. Around them, the walls whispered with an unusual tranquility. They had transformed the space, banished the shadows, and forged a haven from darkness. "Are we free?" Danny asked, a hesitance lacing his voice. "Yes, sweetheart. We fought together. Together we're strong." She smiled, pulling him close. The air felt lighter, free of the burdens they had carried. Stepping outside, the world glimmered like new, fresh, and alive. The sun broke through every lingering shadow, chasing away dread. "We did it," Danny exclaimed, sunbeams glinting delightfully through the leaves. Sarah closed her eyes, soaking in gratitude and relief, knowing they would forever cherish their victory. They had confronted their fears but learned to wield their love as a weapon. "We'll always remember that," she vowed, looking at the radiant sky. Hand in hand, they stepped into this new beginning, intertwined in love, ready to face whatever lay ahead with courage ignited by hope. And as the day turned into night, she whispered, "Nothing can take us away again. We are unstoppable. Now it's your turn to rise against your own shadows." Remember to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans know how important it is to support the channel. Show your love now.